I think that what I've learned through Encircle is that as parents, we do the best we can do with what we at that time know and what we feel. Yeah, and sometimes it takes a while to, I don't know what happened with this father during that time, but he was there for his son there. And I think that's what communities are for, is to make up the difference sometimes.
What's up, guys? This is Jeff Burningham, and welcome to the Extraordinary Us podcast, where we are interviewing ordinary people. We're all ordinary, but these people are doing extraordinary things. Let me remind you real quick the tenets of the podcast. Number one, no matter our differences, no matter what we look like, no matter our religious affiliation, our sexual orientation, our political party, there is always a lot more that we have in common than we ever have different. We are fellow travelers in this journey together. Number one. Number two, because of that, let's share and have compassion for each other. We are all struggling with different things every day. And I think that we could all benefit from a lot more compassion in our life, a little less competition, a little less comparing. And third and last, we too often let fear because of mistakes in the past or fear for an unknown future inhibit and help us make bad decisions. Let's not let fear rule our decisions. Let's have faith in the future and go forward together. And I'm so excited. We're here at the end of Pride Month, and I'm talking with my friend Stephenie Larsen today, the founder of Encircle.
Hi, thanks for having me, Jeff. I'm excited to be here.
Stephenie, thank you so much for being here. Let me tell you, in case you don't know, a little bit more about Steph and a little bit more about Encircle. She is the founder of Encircle. Like I said, this is Pride Month. Encircle started in Provo, but is greatly expanding, right? You were just saying, you can't even, how many new, do you call them homes?
Yeah, Encircle homes.
Homes, okay. How many new homes are being built?
We're building renovating Dan Reynolds' home in Las Vegas. And then cool. We're building on Utah State campus in Logan. We're renovating in downtown Heber and building in downtown Ogden.
Wow.
And then past that, we'll do a home in Lehigh, Harriman, 2 in Arizona, 2 in Idaho. And I think that's all on the docket for now.
But do you have plans to grow even past that?
I think so. I think we can talk about it, but I think that Encircle is a place that brings people together, brings more love and understanding, helps keep kids alive, and our focus is good mental health. So I feel like it's something that fits in a Jewish community, in a born-again community. Yeah. Really any socioeconomic community, I think, can benefit from something like Encircle.
I totally agree, and that's one of the reasons I love what you're doing. There is so much good that could come from this. But you started in Utah. Was that because you're here in Utah, or do you have a specific focus in Utah for some reason? Obviously, we know that our suicide rates sometimes and you could tell us some of the stats, I'm not up on those exactly, but are higher than other places. Tell me, why Utah? Is that because that's where you live? You grew up, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Orem, okay. So it's in my own backyard. Yeah. It wasn't, what I thought it would be. So it was just hey, let's do this in Provo because I know there's a need.
Yeah. Got it. And how did you know about that need? Tell us your why here, Steph. We were talking a little bit before about how busy Stephenie is. She has a beautiful family with her husband, Mitch. 5 children?
6.
6 children. Yeah. I underestimated that. Don't ever underestimate Stephenie Larsen.
No.
Do not ever underestimate her. She has great partners, donor partners. Dan Reynolds, the Imagine Dragons lead singer.
Yep.
Imagine Dragons. Ryan Smith, as we all know from the Jazz and Qualtrics. We love Ryan. And then Tim Cook, also, I believe, from Apple. So anyway, Stephenie is doing a ton of interesting things. First of all, maybe let me step back. Tell us what Encircle is. For those of us who are listening and haven't ever visited an Encircle home, tell us how you came up with this vision and what it is.
Well, Encircle's mission, first of all, is to bring the family and the community together to enable LGBTQ youth to thrive. So that's our overall, what we're aiming at.
And is that like stated on the wall? Like that's what it is? That's like in the documents?
It's in the documents.
Okay.
It's in our federal filing, to be
Okay,
a
got it.
501c3. Okay, let's see. Let me tell you the basics of what we do. Encircle is created to be a home for youth who don't maybe feel at home anywhere. We offer pretty much 5 things. First of all, a safe space for youth to drop in daily when, just maybe for a couple of hours, they come and get cookies, they do their homework, they play the piano, or they get some paints out of the art room and paint, right?
Yeah.
Second, we have programs. We have 8 programs a week at each house. They include art, music, writing classes, service projects, speaker series, and I think most importantly, programs for parents.
Interesting. Like parents of youth that are in Encircle.
Yes. For children who have children who are LGBTQ. We also have a volunteer program that kind of is our community component, but I'll probably tell the story a little bit before I go into that. The fourth thing, well, I'm only on the third. We have the foundation of Encircle is our therapy services.
Got it.
And this year in Utah, we'll do over 6,000 sessions of therapy. Most individuals pay $25 a session. Encircle picks up the other $100 per session.
Wow.
We are on 10 insurance plans, which helps bring the cost down a bit. The fourth thing we do is what we call friendship circles. Friendship circles are support groups. We do 12 a week at each house. They average 20 individuals per group. And I think that's one of the more life-saving, meaningful things that happen in the homes. And then the fifth thing we do is educational materials. So we have a lot of pamphlets. We're working on our second book. We put a lot of videos out online. And those are all meant to educate the community, especially those parents who are traveling this journey, to help them be more affirming of their children and maybe to shorten that period of time where mom and dad aren't on board, or they don't understand, or they're confused. And we do know, as humans, we all care so deeply about what our parents think of us, how our siblings view us. And I think oftentimes these kids get so they're just looking back at their parents, trying to fix those relationships rather than being able to move forward and become all that they are, right? And, and plus, suicidality is a part of that. Drug abuse and addiction, alcoholism, all happen when kids feel outside of their families. But also kids feel the brunt of their parents' relationship when parents aren't agreeing on this, right?
That's so hard.
And so we're just trying to keep families together in that part. But what the educational materials are for is to have parents take them home and to read them and go, oh, I've never thought of it that way. Maybe I could do this better with my child, right?
Yeah, there is so much that we could jump off from there. I noticed that you said like it's a home for sometimes people who don't ever feel like they have a home, so to speak, right? And so, and I think what you were saying in that, sometimes these youth, as they're growing up, they don't even feel safe or understood in their own homes. And so you're providing a safe space for them, or a home, maybe even kind of a family for those that are struggling with these issues. Is that correct?
Yeah. 100%. Maybe I can tell a brief story to kind of illustrate what I think is that part of this. We have a young boy from Springville who, let's say it's November a few years ago, is kicked out of his home because he comes out as transgender. So was female, goes to his parents, I really feel that I'm a male. Parents kick him out of the home. Someone, thankfully in the ward, says, listen, you come and live with us, we've got you. So every day at 2 o'clock when we open Encircle, this young boy would show up, waiting at the door, ready to come in. We'd open the door, and he would make cookies every day. Usually that's the volunteers who come and do that. But we have this, young high school student making cookies every day.
Yeah.
So fast forward to January, the police show up. And mom and dad are giving a protective order to this boy to make sure that he doesn't get within 500 feet of their home because of the influence they don't want on their other children.
Got
right?
it, yeah.
So I'll say over the winter, I'm having these thoughts of, who are these parents? This boy would stay until 8 o'clock at night when we close, go to the next, we were his home for several months. The great thing is fast forward to May, we're having a meeting in the main room of Encircle in Provo, and the doors are shut on this room. And this boy comes breaking through the door, and he's like, my dad's coming, but this time don't be afraid. It's not like he's not bringing the police. It's not bad. He's like, he called me last night and said he wants to learn about what I'm experiencing and learn what makes me happy. And so he's coming. And so, we talked to him for a minute, and we're all excited. And then we finished the meeting about an hour later, and I walk out into the kitchen, forgetting he was even there. And here is just the nicest man making cookies with his son, right? Rolling cookie balls and talking. And I think that what I've learned through Encircle is that as parents, we do the best we can do with what we at that time know and what we feel.
Know,
yeah. And sometimes it takes a while to, I don't know what happened with this father during that time, but he was there for his son there. And I think that's what communities are for, is to make up the difference sometimes, right? This boy's back in his home. He's thriving. He's doing well. Mom
and his
dad.
Parents have changed their minds or their thoughts.
And so...
Do you see that often? Like, how is that usually the case? Is that usually not the case? I mean, I don't know,
I would say about 70% of the time, parents really start rallying around their kids. Sometimes it takes a while, like this young boy. But, I think our job in life is not to judge, but to be there for each other and say, you know what, life's tough, and we're all on this journey. Let's help each other through it. And, I think that's part of what we really want to do at Encircle.
Yeah, one of the tenets of the podcast, like I said, is that we all are a lot more alike than we are different, no matter our differences. And I think one of the things that we all share in common, there's just so much about life that we don't understand.
Right.
We want to be experts. Everyone works to be an expert in certain areas or fields. There are people that understand things better than others. But, man, there's just so much that is hard to know and understand. And this is one of those complicated issues that I think is hard to understand. What is the history of Pride Month? Or I think, was it Pride Week and now it's Pride Month? Like, educate us, Steph, a little bit about this. June is Pride Month. I think Governor Cox made a nice statement about it. Tell us about Pride Month in Utah and the history of that and how maybe people could be involved or get involved or whatever.
Right. Well, I'm gonna say this through.
This is kind of hard to talk about, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not experienced talking about this.
No.
And it's kind of hard, because I'm not used to it, and it's such a sensitive topic. Do you know what I mean? I guess you've become an expert at it, but it's hard,
Yeah. Now tell me. I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Why do you feel like it's hard? Do you feel like you don't know enough about it?
Something I said like 10 minutes ago, like these complicated issues. I don't know if these are. I mean, I guess these are issues. What I meant by that was like parental issues, like familial issues, like relationship issues. Like obviously, these youth that are struggling with these issues or having these issues, I should say, or having this experience, that's really hard on their relationships, on their closest relationships, like you said, with their loved ones, with their family, with their husband or wife, with whoever. I think it's just hard. And because of it's so sensitive, and I just don't think we have a lot of practice talking about it publicly like we are now, even just privately, I think it's very hard to talk about when you don't have a lot of experience with it.
I think you're 100% right. And I think that that's part of what we are trying to do at Encircle is at Encircle in Provo, we've probably we've trained close to 3,000 volunteers. The point of that is to have people come through, learn about suicidality, learn about what do you do if a child's overdosing, learning about mental health issues, hoping that, as we teach people about cultural competency and what is LGBTQIAs mean, that people can go back out in the community and have better conversations around this and be more affirming of those kids. I'm not answering your question, but one point on that
but this is great.
Is that we do know that the average lesbian, gay, or bisexual youth realizes that they are gay, lesbian, or bisexual by age 12, on average. On average, they don't come out until they're 22. So that leaves a 10-year period where kids in our communities have a secret. Nobody knows who they are.
Yeah.
Yet they're walking around, and what are they hearing from mom and dad about people like them, from their aunt, from their church leaders, from their teachers, from their friends? And oftentimes by the time these kids come out, there's so much shame bottled down inside of these kids and so much self-hate that it takes a lot of time and work to fix what has already happened, and nobody even knew who they were talking to, right?
And you're kind of helping some of that healing get started. Would you say that is that correct? You have this 12 to 22, this 10-year period where it's a secret oftentimes. You're helping that healing and get started, and you're helping these youth have a more healthy life as youth, as young adults. And I say that because you've spoken about mental health a lot. Mental health is a huge issue here in the state of Utah. It's a huge issue across the country. It's something that we're talking a lot more about post-COVID or during COVID. But you tie those a lot together, I think. Are you tying these LGBTQ issues with mental health issues very tightly? I mean, do those go hand in hand?
Well, yes, but I want to first of all state that it's not because these kids are LGBTQ that they have more mental health issues. It's because of the stories they've heard about themselves. Also knowing that they're a minority. They're some of the few in our community. So they always have to walk a little different path than the rest of us, right? And they're always going to stand out in a way that I think the story they sometimes tell themselves is, my community doesn't care about me. No one will like me if they know who I am. They'll think that I'm bad. I'm evil. And I think that these kids wish people understood their hearts and what they were going through. And if they understood their hearts, they would know that they were good.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely been my experience. I told you before the podcast stuff that, two of my best friends are gay, and I love them. I know them as great men that I admire and respect, and we have wept together, and we have laughed together, and we've done, we've had life experiences together, yet this is a part of their lives that very few people know about, and it has driven them it's very hard. It is very difficult for them to function and to accept themselves and to love themselves. And I think one of the reasons it's hard to talk about is just LGBTQ. That's just a mouthful. IA, which I maybe am behind the times, and I'm not claiming to be an expert in this area, but I hadn't heard IA until the last year or several months. Maybe I'm late to the party. What is IA, and will we keep adding letters? I mean, I think these are normal questions that people just generally might have, and I don't know what it is. So teach us a little bit about it.
Okay, so we go lesbian, gay, LG. Okay, lesbian, gay, bisexual.
It's hard, isn't it?
IA, intersex, asexual.
Got it.
They're really, when we grew up, the word queer was said as a negative.
Yeah.
The young generation today, and I think most of the queer community, has adopted that it's okay, because what it's saying is it's an umbrella term.
Yeah.
And they're saying, I don't sometimes know exactly how I feel yet or who I am. I just know I'm not the majority. I'm not, and so that queer term is just like, I'm queer. I'm not part of the average population. And also, I think it's important to realize that there's kind of two sides to it. There's the who I am attracted to, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and then there's the gender side. How do I identify? How do I see myself? Do I see myself as the way I was born, what's on my birth certificate? Or do I see myself as not fitting into that mold?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's great. How are we doing in Utah, with mental health and I kind of cut you off there or changed paths a little bit, and I wasn't saying that because you experience these issues that you are mentally ill. It's because of maybe your experience in the community or in your family that you become, that it hurts, it helps you be depressed or causes you to be depressed. Is mental health, are we making progress there? Give us some hope, or give us some sobering news or statistics, like wake us up.
Well, I think that Utah is doing well because we have said we have a problem and we're going to do something about it. And I think that Utah's very good at that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're not just going to let problems linger. Like, people face them. You know, I know that, well, let's say this. Suicide is the leading cause of death for Utah's youth. I mean, they're more likely to die by suicide than in a car accident, which to me is shocking.
And it's sad.
It's horrible, right? And so the next thing we know is that LGBTQ youth are 3 times more likely to take their lives than their straight peers. 42% of Utah's homeless youth are LGBTQ. The statistics aren't good.
Yeah.
But
that's something we should all be concerned about. Like, and that's sobering. Those are sobering statistics, right?
Right. And I know that, you know, the legislature's been really putting a focus on this. I know educators are. You look at what the Huntsmans have done by donating $150 million towards mental health services. I mean, that's a great starting point. And not starting point, because of course, you know, people have been working on mental health issues, but I think it's, as a population, we're starting to really say, this matters. This is something I shouldn't be ashamed of. One thing I love is at the Encircle homes, you know, you'll be sitting down in a kitchen and some kid will look at his clock and say, oh my gosh, I've got a therapy session. And they run upstairs. And there's not shame around that. It's I'm taking care of myself. I'm trying to be a better person, right?
Yeah. So why you, Stephenie? Why are you doing this? We spoke a little bit before, and you kind of said, yeah, I always thought maybe when my kids were grown up, I'd be an entrepreneur, maybe start a business and sell products here or there, you know, or whatever. This is very different. This is very complicated. This is a complex situation. We live in a very, you know, for better and worse, and there's a lot of good that comes out of it, and there is some bad as well. We live in a very conservative religious culture. I'm speaking generally. Why? You got to have a passion or belief in this. Obviously, that's why you're doing it. You know, why?
Well, if you can stand my story, I'll try to keep it on the straightforward. I grew up in Orem.
Yeah.
I never really left, you know, this community much until I was 26 and then 25, and I graduated from BYU Law School. So I was, you know, my family, I had a great family, but my parents really struggled in their relationship, and it was a very volatile, emotional relationship. I think that I always felt like God had blessed me with my ward and good friends that were like my stability, right?
Yeah. So
family, I think, meant everything to me. That's what I wanted more than anything, was a peaceful family. So
that's what a lot of us want, right?
Yeah, right. Want. I mean, and so I went to BYU, and I was a family science major thinking, I've got to figure out why didn't it work at my home, and how do I fix that, right? Mm-hmm. And anyway, I graduate from my undergrad, and I go to law school. I'd worked in Washington, D.C., and loved that, and thought, I want to help families through the legislation more than I thought I'd want to do therapy. Anyway, I'm getting way sidetracked, except for that I graduate from law school, and I will tell you, when I left BYU, I would have told you, people who are gay, choose to be gay, they're sinning, that if we ever had same-sex marriage in this country, it would ruin the moral fibers of our country.
Mm-hmm. So this is like 20 years ago.
Yeah, this is 1996. So I go back and I work on Capitol Hill. I'm working for the Committee on Children, Youth, and Families, also defending abused and neglected kids in inner city DC, but I am helping write legislation and doing hearings that are protecting that traditional family, right? Protecting so that we don't have things like gay marriage, or I shouldn't say, a same-sex marriage in our country. And I'm dating my husband, who's from Salt Lake City. Mitch has an uncle whose name was John Williams, and he was gay. John grew up in Grace, Idaho, in a family of 6. He said that when he was in high school, he would have done anything not to be gay. No one knew it. So he went on a mission, hoping he could pray the gay away. Came home from his mission and went to Utah State, and he said was so depressed and had so much self-hate because he was still gay and he couldn't get himself to change. He had a sister who lived in Salt Lake City who recognized Jon was really struggling. So she drove and picked him up, and he said saved his life. While in Salt Lake City, comes out to his family, and they're like, Jon, we love you. You're amazing. Just go and be you, right? So he didn't spend years trying to repair these relationships. Instead, Jon got to move forward and become all that he became. Jon was the first renovationist to take downtown pioneer buildings and turn them into contemporary office spaces. Like, he owned the Ford building, the Hardware building, the Market Street building, the New Yorker, and a few more. Yeah. And then he brought fresh seafood into Salt Lake City. He started first the New Yorker, Bocce, Cafe Pierpont, Market Street Grills, Market Street Broiler, the Gastronomy Restaurant Group, which, you know, really brought fine dining to Salt Lake City. And he started the Downtown Alliance. Utah State eventually gave him an honorary doctorate, even though he never even graduated from their school, because he quietly was donating to them. You know, Jon never needed his name on anything. I'm getting to know this man going, he is the most Christ-like person I've ever met. How am I judging him for his sexuality? You know, that's such a small part of him. And so it made me question all of my beliefs. And, you know, I would say...
Is your husband, by the way, going through this same kind of process, or did he? I'm astounded and like amazed, and it's just awesome how his family, it sounds like from the story, just kind of accepted him and allowed him to flourish in his own way. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, Jon was the center of that family's life. The parties Jon would throw for us, oh my word, Christmas parties at his house were like nothing you've ever seen. Yeah. You know, he would fly to San Francisco, get his favorite dim sum, and fly it back. You know, there was caviar, there was all these things that I had never experienced as a girl from Orem. You know, he was just so much fun and loved and celebrated life. Yeah. So I learned a lot from him, and I learned a lot from the Larsons and Williams family about unconditional love. They were all so different from each other, but they just celebrated life together. Right, so yes, you asked me about Mitch. You know, Mitch grew up with Jon, and he was just one of his favorite, most admired person. And Mitch didn't know his whole life that Jon was gay, but he didn't care. Yeah. You know, sort of like when we told our kids that Jon was gay and he got married. Our kids were like, okay. You know, I thought that they would feel different around him, but it didn't even, like, so I realized, you know, there's a lot of conditioning probably in the way we see people who are gay or lesbian, bisexual, transgender. So anyway, I'm getting into too many details, but...
Sorry, I'm asking.
No.
It's an interesting story.
So after 10 years of living outside of Utah, Mitch and I moved back to Provo. We have 6 kids, and I'm getting to know, you know, I have a daughter at Tentview High School who has 3 of her friends come out as gay at the beginning of the junior year. My daughter, Grace, brings me her cell phone one day and is like, Mom, look at all my friends, what these comments are about these 3 boys. What do I say? And I knew all of those kids on this text message. There were 18, and they're all amazing kids. They thought that the way they were responding was what God would want them to do, right? Like they were trying to figure out where do we put this and how do we place it. And that was, you know, a lot of my journey. I start meeting friends of my own who have children who are gay. Sometimes they don't speak about it because we don't, like you said, it's a hard topic. Yeah. And, you know, we have these dreams for our kids, and when they don't fit in, what do we do, you know, and how do we speak about it? And, you know, sometimes parents feel judged for it. Yeah. And so I just had enough situations happen in my life where I was on a bike ride in Idaho, and I called Jon one day, and I'm just crying. I don't know why I'm crying, and I'm like, hey, will you help me do something in Provo? I think it might be one of the hardest places to grow up LGBTQ. And he says, sure.
How long ago is this, roughly?
This is 2014.
Okay, so 7 years ago.
But know that I chickened out.
Okay. 2
years later, I had a conversation with a friend who had a gay son and heard her story and decided I'm doing something. And so I called Jon back, and this time he says, sure, what are we going to do? So through our conversations, it's let's create a home. Let's not have this in a strip mall, have it in a place that feels like love and maybe replaces what people don't currently experience. So I decide, well, it's got to be in an old home so I can renovate it. Well, actually, when I was in Idaho, I was seeing this old home in downtown Provo. I kid you not. But 2 years later, I dropped my kids off at school and thought...
Meaning you were like having visions of it. You could see it becoming... Which, by the way, is it the place?
Well, it wasn't the same house, but I was thinking of an old home in Provo. And that may have been because I was a guardian ad litem back years ago where I represented abused and neglected kids in Provo. And there was this old home that they would stay in until they were placed into foster care.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Whatever it was, it's this old home in Provo. So I thought, well, I'm going to go to the center of Provo and then see what I can find. The downtown Provo temple was about to be dedicated, so I thought I'm going to start there and I'm going to circle around. So I drive down University Avenue, hang a right after the temple, and across the street from the temple, on this little hill, is the cutest little house I've ever seen.
Place. Yeah, it's cool.
And it's got 2 huge available signs, and I'm like, So I drive up, look through the windows, rainbow stained glass windows.
Okay.
And then I later find out the polygamist who built it, 130 years ago put those in, and I'm like, this is the place, right?
This is the place.
So I get on the phone with Jon. I put him on video and show him the house, and I've got it up, and he's oohing and ahhing, and then I flip it around to the temple, and he says, no way, absolutely not. Yeah. It's like most of these kids will not be out. They'll want a back door. They'll want to park a few blocks away and walk in through the back door. And for whatever reason, I was like, Jon, listen, if we really want to have an impact, first of all, we've got to quit othering these kids, right? We've got to get them to love who they are and be okay with who they are. Second of all, we've got to get their parents to rally behind them. Third of all, if you live in a community where you feel outside of that community, you feel judged, you feel misunderstood, you never thrive or you have to leave, right? And so he laughs and goes, are you sure Provo's ready for this? And I'm like, 100%. I had no idea.
This is in 2016, by the way? 2016. So 5 years ago. Okay.
Yep. Tragically, Jon never saw the house. His life was taken about a month after that conversation.
Oh, I'm sorry, Steph.
His partner of 20 years killed him in a house fire. Torched this staircase that was 4 stories high up above the Capitol while Jon was up in his bedroom. And when Mitch came in to tell me this happened, I remember just screaming. I was so angry. But the first thing that I realized that came to my head was, well, the man who did this was kicked out of his house when he was 15. He was on the streets. He contracted AIDS, and he was angry. Right? Through a lot of good things in his life, he turned his life around. But fast forward to 8 years prior to this, he got in a ski accident, needed 8 surgeries, got addicted to painkillers. Eventually, it led to meth. You get an angry person on meth, and you never know what will happen. And I just felt like that's our fault. As a community, we've got to love and nurture these kids within our communities. And so anyway, that was the beginning of it.
Thank you for sharing the story, Steph. I think that's really interesting, and it's really telling of the kind person you are. And so it sounds like you just kept having kind of whatever feelings, or like, I should do something about this. I should do something about this. You even kind of wimped out, as you said, once, and then came back, and just, so you feel called to do something about this issue. And is Provo ready? It seems like it, and it seems like Utah's ready, because there are 4 or 5 other houses happening now within Utah. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, I truthfully thought part of the reason I chickened out is I'm like, I've got 6 kids. Like, I can't have their lives difficult because of their crazy mom, right? Yeah. I was afraid of the feeling. Yeah. I was afraid of the judgment.
Yeah.
And
this is why I didn't want to run for governor. Yeah. Anything hard, like, I don't want to have backlash on myself. Have you experienced that?
No, absolutely nothing but seeing the best in people every day. I will tell you that when we first bought the home and we were going to, it was just destroyed, everything about it needed to be fixed. So we put a Facebook post up, we're doing the service project Saturday morning, 9 to 12, and we would get 150 people to show up on their Saturday mornings with their families, time after time after time, to help us get this house done. So I feel like since the beginning, every day I see the best in people.
That's awesome.
People who give their time, their money, people are incredible when you give the opportunity, to serve others.
Yeah, and to step up, right? I mean, that's what Encircle does. Like we said, on some of the most sensitive topics that we deal with here on this earth. So you have your large donors. I said, Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons. We all know and love their music. Ryan, who we know well around the community. And then Tim Cook from Apple. Like, how did that come together? What does that mean? What role do they play in the organization?
Yeah. Well, and I think I probably should quickly say that that group has joined in the last several months, and that it has been thousands of other donors, large and small, many of the tech companies, Domo, Adobe, Qualtrics, as you mentioned, Visa, like I could go on and on. Yeah. So I don't want to not acknowledge, Zions Bank has been a big supporter. And so
it's a nonprofit. Encircle is a nonprofit, by the way. And so you've been taking donations from the beginning, and that's what's allowed you to do what you've done to date, correct?
Yep. Steve and Barb Young were the very first. Holly Alden, Stance Sock, Skull Candy, really helped us get this off the ground. John Williams had already promised 100,000, so that got us going. But, since then, it's just been, we have a monthly donor program, which we have thousands of people who give maybe $5 a month, and they choose which home they wanted to go to, and that helps really mostly pay for the therapy in the house, because that's the really expensive part of what we're doing.
How can people find out about that?
Just encircletogether.org, donate.
Okay.
And there, anyway, that's really what sustains us. And also, we know we can rely on that piece for the long-term sustainability.
Got it.
So you asked about Tim Cook. How did he show up? Yeah. Well, we were doing the Second Love Loud, and he flew into Provo to see Encircle because he was speaking at it and had donated to Love Loud. And he spent a few hours in the home talking to the youth and taking selfies with them. And so, we spent time with him with Love Loud, and then we just kept in touch with the Apple team. And they've just been incredible. This year with Ryan and Ashley Smith donated $2 million. Apple donated $1 million plus $1,000 worth of computers and software and whatnot to the homes. And then Dan Reynolds bought his parents his childhood home in Las Vegas.
And then donated
it. Valued at $1 million. And so
which is now becoming the Encircle home.
Yes,
is that correct? I just want to tie
Yep,
it all
we're
together.
just starting to renovate that.
That's cool.
And they went on Good Morning America to kick off this 8 million 8 Encircle homes campaign, which has been really great because we're gonna get there.
That's awesome. And so does it cost about $1 million a home? So is that roughly?
Roughly, it costs about $750 to build the home, and then the other $250 is for that first year of operating costs, just to make sure that it's sustainable. But and maybe to speak to the homes quickly. I don't want to go on too long, but
no, I love it. If you haven't visited the home nearest you, go check it out. I mean, I've been to the Provo home a couple times. It's a really cool place, great design, by the way, and just feels good in there. I loved it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think they feel like there's like love coming out of the walls. There's a really great energy in these homes. And, it started with the first home. We were renovating it with John Williams' money. So I kept thinking, how would John do this? Okay, we can't afford one chair that he would ever buy, but, we can get that same feel of it's being a special place. I will tell you, at least 10 people called me and said, hey, I have an old couch. Would you want it? And I'd be like, no, but thank you so much. But really what has become the vision is that these homes represent the value of the youth, that they're beautiful, they're worth investing in. We want mom and dad to see that. We want to let the kids feel like they're part of something beautiful and important, a place they can be proud of that represents who they are. You know, the homes will have grand pianos, they have original art by local artists or young queer artists. And, you know, I think most of these kids who come to Encircle are so incredibly talented. We want the homes to reflect their beauty.
That. Yeah, that's awesome. So you have these new big donors, well-known people, and so, but they're just the latest of a bunch of donors. And the plan is to continue to grow and find donors from there, and hopefully they'll continue to support, et cetera. Is that correct?
Yep.
Do you have a board? Like, who's on your board, or some of the people on your board? Or
Yeah, we have an incredible board. We had a founding board that just turned over. Barb Young is still board emeritus. Holly Alden, like I said, she and her husband started Skull Candy and then Stance Socks. Rob Bruff, who is an executive at Zions Bank, is on it. Okay. Dan Reynolds, Imagine Dragons, on it. John Murphy is just joining the board. He was the CFO of Adobe. Stacy, I'm going to forget Stacy's name because she just replaced someone else, but she is the head of Goldman Sachs in Salt Lake City.
Awesome. The point is broad support.
I could go. I can't remember because I'm starting to feel like I'm going to start sweating that I'm going to forget someone.
No, there's too many people to name.
They're on the website.
Yeah, and any worthy endeavor, I mean, it takes a village, right? Like, it takes an army of people to grow up. What would you say? So it's been 5-ish years since Encircle, but you've been grappling with these issues for a couple of decades. What are some key takeaways, Steph? Like, what are the most important lesson or two or three, whatever you want, that you kind of learned in the first 5 years of Encircle, and give us a vision, maybe too, for the future, like what's coming next?
Okay, wow.
Sorry.
No.
I think I layer on too many questions.
No,
it's
you're
because I'm so curious and I'm interested.
Okay, remind me of what I miss out. But one of the things I've learned is that parents have the best intent almost 100% of the time, and sometimes it takes a while to, get the support, get the knowledge, reorganize this in your head, right?
Grace is a word that we do not use enough in our culture. In my opinion, humble opinion. And so grace towards someone whose sexuality may be different than yours, but also grace back to a parent who's grappling with this unforeseen, they didn't and maybe envision this or understand. Right. They've never experienced this. They didn't know how they would experience it. So grace back to the parent is often good as well, right?
Right, 100%. I would say that another thing that I've studied a lot about the biology behind our sexuality and gender identity since starting this. There is so much research out there that points to it being biological or having biological underpinnings. Science will tell you that kids are born this way. Science will tell you it's unchangeable. I've always thought it's the population, it's between like 5 and 10% of the population is LGBTQ. And I would say since the beginning of time until the end of time, that same percentage will be born LGBTQ. And so I think for us as humans is to decide, how are we going to treat these people? Will they always grow up feeling shame? Will they always grow up feeling less than? Will we never get their full capacity because of the damage that's been done? Will we lose many of them to suicide, right? I think it's up to us to change the narrative, because if we love and support them, they will be some of the best leaders in our community. I can tell you the kids I know at Encircle, I would be so proud if my kids were like them, Yeah. But one more thing on that.
Yeah, that's interesting. But 5 to 10% of the population is kind of always
and
been in this group, but have they ever been represented? Have they ever, like you said, I love how you say, like, risen to their potential to contribute to society in really meaningful ways, and that's kind of what you're focused on, is helping us all flourish.
Yep. Well, okay, and one more thing on that. So there's over 1,000 species that have been identified that have lesbian, gay, or bisexual, like from a fruit fly to the lion to the horse. So it's something about nature, humanity. It's a part of us, right? Although the recent Gallup poll that just came out said that 15-point-something% of Gen Zs identify as LGBTQ. There was an article in the Salt Lake Trib yesterday that Jana Reese did that talked about up to 23% of LDS population in that young category identifying as LGBTQ. So this impacts a lot of people, not just people, but families and friends. You know, it touches all of us. You know, I just hope that we choose to love better, you know, with that. Sorry, that wasn't really what I've learned, but it kind of is.
Those are great things that you've learned, it sounds like to me. What does the future look like? And again, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your heart, sharing your story. You know, I apologize for the clumsiness maybe that I felt the most clumsy in this interview or this discussion than I ever had. So I apologize.
Oh no, I'm sorry for that. I should have somehow eased your...
No, it's my fault. But tell us about the future. What are you growing towards? What are you looking forward to? Why is the future bright?
You know, I think that we're talking, we're having those hard, uncomfortable conversations, which leads to learning and changing and growth. I like to envision a day when kids won't be afraid to come out. It won't take 10 years, that maybe it will be celebrated because we recognize, you know, these are important and not the majority of like the rest of us, right? As far as Encircle, I hope that we will expand far past the 10 houses we have on the docket. I think because we see people come together. If you have time, I'm going to tell you one quick, short. Example of what I'm saying is at Encircle, our mission is no sides, only love. Where that came from is when we have this house across the street from, you know, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints' newest temple at the time. We're thinking, how do we make this a real resource, a place of love and support, not a place where people might feel angry, right?
Yeah.
And so that motto of no sides, only love became how we approach every conversation, everyone who walks in the door. We want a mom whose child has come out and it took her 6 months to dare walk through the door, come in and feel like she can say, these are my fears. This is what I'm worried about. This is what I don't get, and feel safe to make those questions, right? So anyway, in doing that, we have a volunteer program. We train volunteers on Saturday mornings once a month. We've just put it online, but historically it's been in the homes. And we always go around the room and say, why are you here? Why would you want to be an Encircle volunteer? Every time there'll be, sadly, a parent who says, I've lost a child to suicide. There'll be someone else who says, I have 3 children who are LGBTQ. There'll be a BYU student who says, I'm curious, I need internship hours, I'm here to learn, right? We have people from all different walks of life, but one time we're going down around the room, and this man says, I am so mad at the LDS Church. They're killing our children, I'm here to make a difference. The guy sitting next to him says, well, I'm an LDS bishop. People come to me first, parents and children. I need to know what to do. And the guy sitting next to him says, well, I'm gay and I'm in a bishopric. And like you laughed, I started laughing in front of like 60 people because I'm like, wow, we've got everyone here, right?
Yeah.
But I think that the
whole family.
The whole family. Yeah. But that's what I think is working at Encircle, is we put our differences aside. We agree on one thing. We're here to love these kids. And that's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
And it just makes it a place of love and support, and I think everyone walks away feeling better.
That's awesome, Steph. I mean, I can just say from my personal experience, once I had proximity or got close to people that I loved and cared for and knew that felt this way, that were gay, I could never look at it the same way, right? Like, these are human beings that are having the same struggles I am, having a lot of the same challenges, facing life, you know, trying to do this and do that. And like I said at the beginning, no matter our differences, I just believe that we're all a lot more alike. And rather than compare to each other, compare challenges or compare this or that, or even compete, let's have compassion towards each other. That's really the purpose of the podcast.
Yeah, I love that. And I think once we get close together, that's when the love begins, we get to know each other.
I agree. Well, I look forward to you continuing on this journey. How's it been for you personally? Like, has it been, I know it's been hard. I know you're really busy. I don't know, but you must love the work. Like, give us a snapshot, and how do you feel?
I think all of us in life want to find purpose and value, and we want to make an impact. Through my family and my kids, I always had that, but it almost felt selfish because they're me, right?
Yeah.
Like, everything I do for them is like
Kind of do it for yourself.
Yeah. And so I think I'm really grateful that every day I know that any time I spend with this, it's time well spent. I'm grateful it's working. I think in the beginning every day I just wake up and be like, be brave, be brave, be brave. And, I still feel that way, because you kind of put yourself out there. But it's easier when you're putting yourself out there for someone else. I just hope that we do some good along the way, and that it's always a place of positivity and love.
Oh, Steph, you're doing a lot of good. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it.
What's up, Extraordinary Us listeners? I hope you were inspired by Stephenie's story today. I think there are a lot of ways that we can resonate with this. We all have challenges. We all struggle with different things. We all have things that we have questions to, unanswered questions, things that don't make sense to us. There's so much more that we don't know about a lot of things than we do know. I'm always amazed by our ability to continue to have new discoveries and learn new things. I think that's such a blessing to the human race. This is something that's really sensitive. Thank you for please be patient with me in this episode. I have never felt so, I guess, clumsy and I wasn't nervous or concerned at all to start, but just, this is such a sensitive topic. And let me tell you my experience with LGBTQ. I mean, that's such a mouthful, like I said, in and of itself. But the LGBTQ community, I have a couple of dear friends that fit within this community. And these are two of the best people I know. I love them. They love me. They have a lot of, there's a lot more that link us together, even though, we have different sexual preferences, and we have different life stories, and we have different experiences. Again, I guess what I would say is, let's err on the side of compassion. Again, we all have struggles. We all have things about ourselves that we probably wish we understood better and others gave us the benefit of the doubt of. I know this is a sensitive issue. I know it goes to the heart of a lot of who we are, but hey, I think two things you can count on me for. Number one, doing my very best and putting my heart in the right place, or trying to. And then number two, tackling hard issues and trying to challenge myself and to grow and learn. I certainly tried to do this do that in this episode. Stephenie is trying to model that, I think, in her life as well. She doesn't have all the answers. She feels like, she told me she felt like she's a lot like I was, she was maybe 5 years ago. And so we're all learning and growing here. Again, the two things I'll say, we have a lot more alike than we have different, no matter our differences. And, I have this in the podcast studio in a couple places. Love is the answer. 99.9% of the time. Let's just love. Love is the answer. Let's love each other. Let's support each other, even in our differences, even in things that are hard to understand. I can just imagine, and I hope that people in this community will listen to this episode, or maybe a parent that has struggled with this, and that it will be helpful, and this will be a resource for them to uplift them. I hope that's the case. Love is the answer.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Extraordinary Us podcast with Jeff Burningham. Please help us grow by leaving a rating and review and subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Also, tell your friends and share on social media. See you again next week.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Jeff.
And Sal.
I'm here with my wife. Why? Because we're starting a podcast together.
Yes, we are.
And it's called
Under Our Bed.
Why is it called that, Sally?
Because we are sitting under our bed right now.
We are.
In this podcast
Yes.
studio.
And we're going to be talking about things that are interesting, vulnerable, relevant.
Funny.
So check it out. Funny if you're on. So check it out wherever you get your podcast, wherever you listen to The Extraordinary Us. Look for Under Our Bed with Jeff and Sal.
Check it out.
Good night.
Good night.